Ben Domenech, publisher of the Federalist, and Richard Fowler. He is New Leaders Council Senior Fellow and Fox News contributor. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you both here. So
Welcome
it's been a couple of days. Thank you. It's great to be here, Richard, and nice to be on the set with you. You're usually in a little box, and you're always much taller than I think you are in person. What do you think about all this?
Well, I got to tell you, I thought about this one really hard, and I think as a president goes out making, doing these last-minute pardons and commutations are a hard thing to do. And when I thought about the Oscar Lopez case, I understand why a lot of people in America are furious by it. But I thought back to our founders and the Boston Tea Party, right, which was the British government at the time thought was a terrorist act, because we were fighting for the sainthood of freedom that he was fighting for the people of Puerto Rico. And so I don't know if I would have made the same decision when I'm not the President of the United States, but I understand why the president did it, and I think it's in line with what our founders fought for.
Ben?
Well, my family is Puerto Rican, Martha. This is very important to me. My family lived there when America won Puerto Rico in the Spanish-American War. My family has lived and been active there in the politics there for the decades since. And I care deeply about this. Oscar Lopez Rivera is nothing more than a terrorist. But worse, he's an unrepentant terrorist. Simple fact is that he has never repented. He has never backed off. He has never pushed back on any of the tactics that he used at the time or publicly denounced or regretted them. Your colleague there, Trace, reported, as some reports had it, that Rivera was unwilling to sign on to the conditional clemency that President Clinton was willing to grant him that was rejected by the Senate 95-2 in 1999 because his fellow colleagues would be in prison. But the New York Times reported at the time that the real reason was that the conditional clemency would have required him to give up the use of force and terrorism as a justifiable approach to his cause. The fact is there is an independentista movement in Puerto Rico. There has been for a very long time. They've been active and they've engaged in a lot of criminal activity that has resulted in the deaths of many of their fellow Americans. I think it is unconscionable that President Obama should exit, enabling someone who is an unrepentant terrorist, who has never apologized for his actions, to the victims of the people, to the victims he enabled to help kill, to the people who he helped train.
That John Adams is an unapologetic
Do you dare
terrorist?
to compare Oscar Lopez Rivera, a socialist who went mad after living for years in Chicago, working as a community
Franklin, who engaged in the same type of activity.
Oscar Lopez Rivera, who trained hundreds of people to make bombs in order to kill their fellow Americans.
What was the Boston Tea Party? What was the Boston Tea Party?
You compare the heroes of the Boston Tea Party to Oscar Lopez Rivera, a socialist who was working on behalf of a communist plot to try to spread socialism throughout the Caribbean.
I take your point. Richard, one of the bigger issues that I see in this, when I look at the sympathy that President Obama has for this person's case, and I think about the cause celeb element of him, that he does feel drawn to those sorts of things. And, we've spent a fair amount of time interviewing the families of some of these people. Joanne Chesmard, who killed a state trooper in New Jersey, I've talked to the family of that person. They lost all of their lives, times, with their loved one, too. Why is it his inclination to feel more sympathetic towards the terrorists who built the bomb than the families of those who lost their loved ones, who were, in most cases, law enforcement?
Well, here's the thing, and I think when you look at commutations and you look at pardons, right? For example, George W. Bush pardoned his the Vice President's Chief of Staff, Scooter Libby, who revealed the life of a covert CIA secret operative, who her life was ruined. Valerie Plane's life is now ruined. Nobody's talking about Valerie Plane's, but Scooter Libby's walking free. That's what when the founders wrote the Constitution, they gave the president the ability to make these decisions. We can question them all we want to, but it is still his constitutional right to make it, and he made it today.
Richard, he didn't do that.
Ben,
As a matter of fact, he didn't do that.
What,
the fact is that John Adams and Benjamin Franklin have nothing in common with Oscar Lopez Rivera.
They are revolutionary fighters, just like people would argue that Cash was a revolutionary fighter. Yeah. Just like you would argue that Nelson Mandela was a revolutionary fighter.
Oscar Lopez Rivera has nothing in common with Nelson Mandela. He is only free because of the celebrity friends that he has who have the presidency here. That is the reason he is free today.
Active resistance against the apartheid government, which at the time called them terrorists, the same name that he's being called.
That is an insult.
It's a revisionist history at best.
Thank you.
I think I know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't think you do know what you're talking about.
Yes, I do.
Ben and Richard, thank you very much.
Good to see you, Martha.
Spirited debate. And the march goes on. Thank you very much.